Alright, so welcome to the class on Zeus, how to be a curator. So first and foremost, just gonna set some basic rules just so we don't get down into anarchy. I'm gonna have some periods for questions. Just if you have a question, just keep it until we reach that time. That way we're gonna save a lot of time. Also, I'm not claiming to be the best Zeus around. Not at all. I just want to teach more people how to Zeus because I have some knowledge about it. But again, I do not claim to be the reference in the BWC community. Alright, so first and foremost, the editor. This is where you are going to create your mission. This is where you place down all that you will need for the mission. And like I mentioned, the way to go into the editor, there should be a big box on the right of the screen, on the title screen. Should say editor. Just click that, select the map that you want to make your mission in, and then that should send you into the editor. So, once you get into the editor, of course, you're going to have an idea about what your mission is going to be. The thing about that is, once you are set to create your mission, be ready to throw that idea out the window once the mission starts. Because as we all know, no plans survive first contact. So what I suggest is always have multiple plans that may or may not lead to your final objective. So let's say, just for example, your mission is simply to take a artillery position. You are probably going to have some sub-objectives before you get to that point, and the players may or may not do exactly what you expect of them. So be ready to have some different objectives or more objectives than what you had planned in case the players start going in a different direction than what you were expecting. So the way I usually image this is I have step A, step B, step C. I also have step A1, step A2, step B1, step B2, step C1, and C2. So the players can get to step A, get bogged down, and then I switch to step A1. That may or may not lead to step B depending on how you want to do it. But that's just my suggestion. Be ready to have multiple plans. The next thing is going to be about briefing. So at the end of this, I'm going to send you a link to one of my previous operations. The observe description is usually the briefing that I give. And all I can say is more is less with the briefing. The more you give, the less ambiguity there is going to be during the mission. The main thing you need to focus on during your briefing, in my opinion, is your intent and your concept of operation. So basically what you intend the mission to be, what you expect of the players, and how they should be conducting the mission, how they should be doing the objectives, and what's going to happen to them. So you give them, let's take my example again of the artillery. So my intent is to deploy the platoon in a motorized column. So just like that, they know that they are going to have vehicles. They know they're going to be using the roads to get to their objectives. And then your concept of operation, you can give them directly a road or just tell them use the shortest route you can find and then assault the position. So the clearer you are there, the less confusion there is going to be during the operation. Is there any question about that? Or comments? Right.
Well, yeah, across the board, it's good to give more details. So you mentioned motorized convoy. You should let them know what their vehicles are.
Yes.
Especially if you're running a long campaign op or something where the setup usually has like tanks and IVs and other things that spawn. They might be expecting that, so you got to be specific into the equipment and the loadouts that they have available to them.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And actually, usually I base my briefing around the standard NATO briefing, which uses the SMESC, an acronym for Situation, Mission, Execution, Support and Logistics, Command, and Signals. So I can go in a bit more detail about what each section of the briefing is. But usually that part you were talking about, usually I would put that in the support and logistics. In the support and logistics, basically you just give it exactly what the players are going to have available to them. So you can tell them exactly you are going to be in a motorized column. These are your vehicles. You are also going to have artillery, support, and an A-10 flying over. So you'll have that available. And then you can go into more detail about what the A10 is going to be used. Like, is it going to be always available? Is it going to be 2 strafes and then it has to rearm? Stuff like that. So I can go into a bit more detail if you want, but since it's kind of not complicated, but it's a bit like there's a lot of stuff to it, I'm not going to go into too much detail right now, but if you want me to, I can get into a bit more detail at the end of this. But good point. Alright, so now how to set up the mission. Well, the first thing you want to do is identify where the players are going to be starting the mission. Where is the spawn point? So right now I'm on Chernaris. I don't know which map you chose. Doesn't really matter. Just pick a spot on the map that you would like the players to spawn in. And then the first thing you want to do is on the right side of the screen, there is a bar with, usually by default, it should be on the objects blue for, so that is units that you can place on the map. So the first thing you want to do is to go into single objects, choose whatever blue for faction you want, go into infantry, whatever it is, grab one of the units and place it on the map. And then, since that player is going to be your, well, it's going to be basically the side the players are on, you can also go into op4 or independent, depending on which side you want the players to be on. If you want the players to play the Russians, then you're going to go into op4, because during your operation, the op4 is going to be the blue 4. So if you want to play as the Russians or the op4, you can do the exact same thing. Just go into op4. If you want to play independent, exact same thing. Just go independent instead. Alright. So the first thing you want to do is give that unit a variable name, because that is going to be your Zeus slot. So the way you do this is you double click on the unit, not on the square above his head, just double click on the unit itself. Should open a menu. At the top there should be a line saying variable name. Everybody has that?
No.
Yep.
It should be under the sub tab of object init.
Oh, sorry. So you click on the left-hand side where it lists.
Yeah, double click the unit.
Double click the unit that is on the map. So this is the line that is going to differentiate this unit from the rest of the units that you are going to place on the map. Why you want to give it a variable name is because right after this we are going to place down the Zeus module to make that unit the Zeus once we get into the map. So you want to give it a name that you are going to remember or copy paste. I usually go simple. I go Z1 for Zeus 1, because usually I have 2 Zeuses, so the second Zeus would be the exact same process. It would just be Z2. So for this one I'm going to go Z1 since it's my Zeus slot 1. And then near the middle of the screen, there should be a sub-tab, Object Control. In this tab, you want to make sure that the player square is ticked and the playable is also ticked. Because if they are not, you will not be able to play in that slot. So you want to make sure that both of these are ticked. The player slot is not going to be ticked for every unit, but it needs to be ticked for at least one unit on the map. So might as well make it the Zeus.
And playable is grayed out because it's the only unit we have down?
No, it's grayed out because the player is ticked. If you untick the player, playable is going to untick itself. You can just tick playable by itself, but you need one player unit on the map, so you need to tick both of them.
But you can only have one?
The player... let me just see.
The player slot is, if you launched this as a single player map, that would be the slot you're in. But since we're doing multiplayer, you still need one playable for some reason.
Indeed.
Okay. So one of them has to be player and playable, or just playable?
Both of them. One unit on the map has to be both player and playable. Usually I set it as the Zeus, so
Gotcha.
Nothing breaks. And then right under the two boxes that you just tick, there is a line, role description. That is where, when you are on the unit selection menu, when you get into the server, that is where you are going to give the name to each of the slots that appear on the menu. So you want to give it the name that the slot is going to be. In this case, this is going to be your Zeus, so we are going to call him Zeus. And then, since he is going to be the leader of his group, you then add at, and then curators. So, in the role description for your main Zeus slot, it should say Zeus at curators. This way, when you link units to that Zeus slots, I'm going to show it to you in just a second. All the units are going to fall under the group of curators. And the Zeus is going to be the head of that group. Does that make sense? So basically the Zeus is kind of going to be like the squad leader of the curators. And you want to tell it curators so that the group is called curators in the map selection screen.
Gotcha.
So once that is done, you press OK. And then we go into Systems. Systems is, again, on the right. It is the second to last tab, or F5 on your keyboard. Once you are there, at the bottom of the list, there is a subcategory which is Zeus. You expand that one, and then the fifth from the top, going to be called Game Master. You want to select that system and place it on the map. I usually place it near my Zeus's just for tidiness. Basically, this is the module that is going to make it so that the unit that is linked to it is going to be a Zeus during the mission. If there is no module like this on the map, there are not going to be any Zeus slots. Or there are going to be Zeus slots, but they won't have access to the Zeus menu during the mission. So you want to place this down. Once it's placed, just as we did for the unit, you double click it. And then this one does not need a variable name, but it does need an owner. So again, in the middle, the line owner, this is where you place your variable name that you set for your Zeus slot. So in my case, Z1. So basically it says the owner of this module is going to be the unit with the variable name Z1. And then press OK.
So do you have to put one of these down for each Zeus you have if you have like an AZ?
Yes, was coming to that. Yes, you need one for each Zeus that you place on the map. Actually, I'm gonna let you guys place down a Z slot. So basically, just do exactly what we just did, and then tell me once you're ready. Basically, and yeah, like you said, you need a game master for each and every Zeus that you have. So if you want to place an AZ, you need a new game master, and then set the owner of that game master to the new unit that you just created for the AZ slot. So I'm gonna let
Can you not make that game master module? Can't you do like Z1 comma Z2? Or you actually have to make one all by itself?
No, you need one for each slot specifically.
Interesting.
I don't think it takes the commas, but I think that's the case. It does not take the commas, so you need a game master system for each of the Zeus slot.
Well, that explains what was going wrong in my ops.
Now, I do have one quick question about the default add-ons under the Game Master module. Are you have them set as all official add-ons, which is the standard default? Is it a good practice to have that set to all add-ons, including unofficial ones?
And which one?
On the Game Master module. Mm-hmm. Under default add-ons, it's the drop-down menu. It says all official add-ons by default. And then if you drop it down, the first option is all add-ons, including unofficial ones.
I usually don't touch anything else, so I don't think it matters. Probably does not matter, because I usually leave it by default, so... Just a quick note as I was making this. So your AZ, he does not need to have the @curator after his role description. All he needs is the role description or the name of the slot you want to give it. Because basically you are going to link it. I'm going to show you right after, but you are going to link him to your main Zeus, which has the curator @curator after the name. So he does not need it because once he's linked, he's basically going to fall under this Zeus slot and will automatically be assigned to the curator group. So
I place my guy next to him and it looks like they're already linked.
Yes, if you place the units close enough, they are going to link themselves. So if you don't want to link them, you either have to put them far enough away so it does not link them by default, or if you want to unlink them, what you can do is press and hold Control, click on the unit, and then drag away from the unit that it is linked to, and then just release, and it's going to create its own group. It's going to unlink from the unit it was linked to. If you want to relink them, same thing. Press hold Control, click on the unit, drag to the unit you want to link to, and then just release. Alright, one last thing I forgot to mention. From now on, you do not need to tick the player box. You just need to tick the playable box. Like I mentioned, there only needs to be one player with the player box ticked on the map. You do not need to tick all of them. Just tick the playable for the rest of the units that you are going to place down that you want the players to play as. Okay, so now that we have our Zeus and AZ, we want to place down the player slots, so the rest of the players. There's two ways to do this. I prefer doing it the long way because I just prefer it because I think I have more control over what's going on, but you can do it the quick way. The quick way is you go into composition, second tab, and then you go into, you have to be in the same like blue 4, op 4, or independent as your Zeus, of course. Then preferably the same army or whatever. It does not really matter, especially if you plan on changing the loadouts. But I suggest going the same army just for tidiness again. Then you are in compositions. And then I was placing US Army Desert, so I'm going to go down USA Army D. Then I open infantry, and then I select a full squad, and I place the full squad on the map. It should place 8 units at the same time. I call this the quick way because basically you could place each and every single unit one by one and then just change them. You are going to have to change every single one of the units you place that you want the players to play as. This is just a quick way to place 8 slots at the same time. I prefer doing it one by one because I edit my loadouts. Then I copy paste the ones that I need to. Gonna get to that in just a second. Once your squad is placed, what you want to do is find the squad leader of the group. Should be the one with the blue rectangle above his head, or red diamond, or green square, depending on the faction you chose. But it's the one with the unit marker right above him. You want to double click the squad leader, and then you tick the playable, and then give him the role description that you want. Since he's a squad leader, just give him squad leader. And then just like the Zeus says, since this is going to be a new group in the selection menu, you want to give him also a @ and then whatever you want the group to be named. So whether it be Alpha, Alpha 1, Widow, whatever you want to call that squad in the selection screen, you give it that name. So I'm going to go with Alpha, just for example. So basically you should have the playable ticked, and then in role description it should say squad leader @ whatever you want to call it. Alright, so now comes the boring part, because we have to go through every single unit we placed and give the tick, well basically we have to tick the playable box and then give them their role description. So you want to do that for every unit that you just placed, since like for the Zeus they are linked to the squad leader, which has the @ alpha after the name. The rest of the units that are linked to that squad leader do not need to have an @ something after the name that you give them. So basically you just need to give them the description of the role that you want them to be. So your team leader, rifleman, grenadier, whatever you want, just give them the role description that they are. And you take the playable box.
A lot more put into this than I thought.
Yeah.
It's pretty quick though.
Yes, once you get the hang of it, it goes pretty quickly. You can also, if you have a map, that's a quick trick. If you have a map that's set up already, you can copy paste stuff between maps. If that's clear, it's a bit.
Yeah, so you can load a map where you already have the units and everything set up the way you like.
Yeah.
Copy that, close that map, open up the map you're working on, and paste it right into there.
Exactly.
Oh, so we got a little starter going on then right now.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Alex.
exactly.
Yes.
Do you need to place down enough troops to fit the entire potential player count?
No. I'm gonna go into that in just a bit,
Okay,
but
I'll wait.
you don't need, like, let's say you set the max to 64 players. You don't need to place down 64 units.
Okay.
Usually I place down 3 full squads and then a row of riflemen that I set to overflow. So basically, instead of calling them either Alpha, Bravo, or whatever, I just call the squad overall overflow.
But you do place down the amount of troops you think are going to be show up as players.
Yes, I place more than what I think are gonna show up as the players, because if you run out of slots, the players won't have a slot to get in and they won't be able to play.
Gotcha.
So you need to place at least enough slots to fill what you expect are gonna show up. And then it's always good practice to have more than that in case some late joiners arrive.
So if you place down the dudes and nobody takes that slot, is the guy then still on the map or is he invisible?
Nope, he's just not gonna appear since he's set
That's
as
what playable flag is.
Yeah, that's why it's flagged as playable. So if a player goes in, there's one thing where you're gonna have to disable, but it's gonna be in just a few minutes.
Okay.
Because I'm gonna talk about it in a few minutes. But basically, once you have all of that down, there's only one thing that you gotta make sure of is if you want medics, you need absolutely to grab one of the units that are called medics or combat medics. Because these units are going to be flagged by the game as medical units, and you cannot give blood or do advanced medical procedures in game if you are not flagged as a medical slot. So if you grab, let's say in USA Army D, you go infantry. I'm in the single objects, not in the composition. So objects, blue 4, USA Army D, infantry. And then I find the combat medic unit. I place him down. This unit is going to be flagged as a medic when you get into the multiplayer. So if a player selects that slot, he's going to automatically be assigned as a medic, and you won't have to manually assign him. So from there, it gets a lot easier, because let's say you want to have 3 squads. All you have to do is select all of that squad you just created. And then, just like in Words, copy, paste. Control C, Control V. It's going to copy the entire squad you just made. The only thing you are going to have to change is what the squad is named. So if you look at your squad leader, if you hover your mouse over the unit, it should say squad leader and then what type of unit it is, and just under it, it's going to show you what the role description line is. So your squad leader on your first squad should say squad leader at alpha. If you copy paste and look at your second squad leader, it's going to say squad leader at alpha also. So what you want to do is double click your second squad leader and make sure you change the alpha for the name of the second squad you want to have placed. So let's say Bravo. So now when you get into the unit selection screen, you are going to have squad alpha with all the units that are inside of it. And right under it, you are going to have squad Bravo with all the units that are under it. And then you just rinse and repeat for the amount of squads you want to have placed down.
Does that change the blue force marker as well, or is that just for the role selection screen?
No, it does not change. That's a good point. Once you're in the Zeus, that Alpha and Bravo that you just gave to the units, that is not going to change what they are called on the map in the Blue Force tracker. When you look on the micro dagger or on the map, they are still going to get the default name that the game gave them. If you want to change that, you want to double click on the rectangle that's above the squad leader. So basically double click and it's going to open up the screen for the whole composition instead of just a unit. And then what you want to change is the call sign. It should be at the top, right under the init box. There should be a line call sign. That is the line you want to change if you want the unit to have a different name on the Blue Force tracker on the map.
Can you say that one more time?
Alright, so you double click on the square that is above the squad leader.
Mm-hmm. Change the call sign?
Yeah, just change the call sign. That's the one that's going to change it on the map. If you don't change it, it's going to be by default. Usually the game assigns them to Alpha 1, Alpha 1-1, Alpha 1-3, whatever. And then, like I said, if you want 3 squads, you just copy paste it 2 more times. Make sure you change the role description, well, the name of the squad in the role description, because basically after the @ that's what the squad is going to be named. So you want to change the name of the squad. Say third one is going to be Charlie, and if you want it to change on the Blue Force tracker, double click the rectangle above the squad leader and then change the call sign. And the last squad that you placed, because that is just something people like to see. The last squad that you place, usually you should name Overflow. And if you want all the slots to be riflemen's, you can change the name for all the units. Instead of having like AT, riflemen, and grenadiers in your overflow slot, you can change everybody so they are all riflemen's. So the people will know that in the overflow squad, there is no specialized role. So now we're going to go into if you want to give your players equipment at the start of the mission. So let's say we're still doing that mission I was talking about the artillery position. I want to give my players some vehicles before they leave. So the vehicles are going to be in the objects, then the faction you chose. For my case, it's Blue 4. Then I'm going to go, I want to place down some Humvees, so I'm going to go into USA Army D. And then I go into cars. So there you have a list of all the available cars to the to that faction, so to the Desert USA Army. So they have a bunch of different Humvees. Let's say I want to give them a Mark 19, so I grab the one that says Mark 19, and since I want the vehicles to be empty because it's the players that are going to fill it, at the bottom of the list, just above the place in area button, there's going to be a box that is ticked. It says place vehicles with crew. You untick that, so now every vehicle that you place on the map are not going to be manned by anybody. They are going to be empty vehicles. If you want to place vehicles that already have people inside of it, you just leave that ticked. And if you place a vehicle, it's going to be fully crewed by whatever it's needed to function Like if it's like in the case of this Humvee with the Mark 19, it's only gonna have a driver and a gunner. But if you grab like a tank, it's gonna have the driver, the gunner, the crew commander. It's gonna have everybody that it needs. But if you want them to be empty, again, just above the placing area, untick the place vehicles with crew. And you can place any old vehicle you want. They're not gonna be crewed by anybody. Now, if you want to lock those vehicles so the players cannot get in, what you want to do is double click the vehicle, and then in object states, the first drop down menu should be lock. You want to open that one, and then you select the options that you want. If you want them to be unlocked so anybody can get in, it's the same as default. You can have them locked so nobody can get in, or you can have them locked for players. So players will not be able to enter the vehicle, but AI will be able to. So if you're making a base with a bunch of enemy vehicles, you don't want the players to jump into the vehicles once they take the base, but you want your AI during the mission to get in the vehicles and start driving around, I suggest you go for locked for players. So you're going to be able to make your AI jump into the vehicles, but the players will not be able to jump into them. And then, as we know, we also need some ammo boxes at the beginning. So these are under objects, and then all the way at the end, the kind of yellow flowerish thingy says props. Then this is a list of all, basically if you see a building or a tree or something on the map, it's probably somewhere in that list. You probably will be able to place it down anywhere on the map that you want by finding it in that list. But for now, we are interested in ammo boxes. So those are under supplies, which is near the end. It should be in alphabetical order. So near the end, supplies, then ammo, then you place the ammo crate that you know will fit with the weapons you gave the players. If you gave the players some RHS US weapons, then find the RHS USF ammo crate, so it will be full of ammo that the players can actually use. And you can, this is also where you can find the equipment crate, so backpacks and stuff like that, launchers for the launchers, special weapons, which I think are snipers and spotting scopes, or like weapons that you don't normally see. Weapons crate for if you want to give them options on weapons. And then all the way at the top, there should be the section with ACE prefix. This is where you are going to find your medical boxes. You want to make sure that you grab the right medical boxes, because there is a basic and an advanced medical box. We are using the advanced system, so you need to place the medical supply crate advanced. Because if you don't, the players are gonna miss some equipment. So you can place down one or two of them. So players go through them pretty quickly. Then you can place an ammo crate or two. Then you can separate them. What I suggest is separating them so that the players can like separate themselves once they are trying to get their equipment. So it's not like it's just a cluster of players all around one box, and it gets really noisy if you're trying to brief your leaders at the same time. So if you separate them, it's going to separate the people a bit.
Is there a way that we can see what's in these boxes that we've placed down?
Yes, I was just getting to that. Just give me a second. I'm just gonna, yeah. And then you want to place the TFAR radios as well. Should be under TFAR. Should be called TFAR, and you want to make sure again that you grab the radios that fit with the factions that you are. If you are Op4 or Red 4, you want to grab the CSAT box. If you are Green 4, you want to grab the AAF box. And if you are Blue 4, you want to grab the NATO box. If not, the radios will bug out. Alright, once you have your ammo boxes and medical and radios and all that jazz that you want to give the players placed down, if you want to change what's inside of the box, you double click the box that you just placed, let's say the ammo crate, then you scroll down until you find Object, Equipment Storage. You want to open that menu. Here you will find a list of everything that is inside the box plus the quantity on the side. There is every single object that can be added on a player from the virtual arsenal or the ace arsenal. They are separated in different tabs. So you have the assault rifle tab. This is going to have all the weapons that were flagged as assault rifles with their ammo. This is also where you're going to find the 40mm grenades for the grenade launchers. Then you have the second tab is the machine guns with their ammo also. Then you have snipers and DMRs for those that were flagged as snipers and DMRs. You have all your launchers and static weapons that can be carried, so like mortars, Mark 19s, 50 cals that are on tripods, all that stuff that can be, that it takes the launcher slot are going to be there. And the pistols with the ammo. In the grenade slot, you are going to get everything that is throwable, but also the explosives if you want to make engineers. Then the one that is a scope, that is going to be every single attachment that is currently both in the game and in the mod packs that we have. So every single attachments are going to be there. This is also where you are going to find everything that you can put, like that is a miscellaneous. So maps, morphine, bandages, yeah, all that stuff. Blood, all that stuff that is in the miscellaneous slot when you are in the virtual arsenal. That is all going to be under the scope icon. Then you have uniforms, so every single uniform, body armor or vests, backpacks, helmets, which also include the face wear, so the glasses and the face masks. And then at the end it's going to be night visions, binoculars, and there's also radios in there. So everything that is not in the miscellaneous tab, that's where you're going to find it. If you want to set the box to an arsenal, at the top of the content there is a line that says type. Right now it should be on default. So when unless you selected the box that said virtual after it, by default it should be set to default. If you want to set it to a arsenal, you want to click on virtual. And now it has become an arsenal. So everything that is inside the box will be infinite, and the players will just need to jump into the arsenal to grab it. That is a way to create a limited arsenal. Basically, you can change exactly what you want the players to have in the arsenal. Just press the minus on the left of the object in the list if you want to take it out, or press on the infinite to add it back to the arsenal. And you can create your virtual limited arsenal that way. I know there's also a way with copy pasting exactly a loadout text description and then pasting it somewhere, but I don't really know how that works, so I'm not gonna go into too much detail about it. Usually I do it manually. It's a pain. It takes about 15 minutes just set up an arsenal that I'm happy with, but yeah, I don't know how to do with the text file. So any questions about placing arsenals, boxes, vehicles, empty, not empty, lock them down? Any questions about that? Or again, comments?
No, I am good.
Great. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about, like for placement of objects and stuff like that, is going to be compositions. Compositions are a group of different objects that create a composition. So let's say you want to place a full base, but I mean, you could do it one object at a time, but if you want to place a base that is already pre-made, best way to do it is to go into compositions, then you go into props. There's going to be a few categories. There's civilians. If you open that one, you're going to see checkpoints. Then there's different types of checkpoints that you can place on the map. There's a large one, medium, small. And you can go into Cup, has some pretty nice military bases and camps if you want those. You go into Cup military, either woodland or desert, depending on the environment you're in. Then you can go, they have camps, small camps. They also categorizes them from blue 4 to red 4. So it's going to be different objects instead of it, depending on what side you choose. And you can place those down and create some camps, objectives, fobs, whatever you need for your mission. You don't only have to stick to what is on the map. You can create some stuff with it. This is also where you are going to find, like we did for the player slots, that is where you are going to find your pre-made squads, mechanized like squads or tank platoons and stuff like that. Let's say you want to have AI placed down at the beginning of the map, which I don't really recommend. Recommend having nothing AI wise on the map when you start, just for loading and a bit of lag as well. But if you want some stuff on your map from the beginning, you can go in there, just select what you want, place them where you want, and then once you get onto the map, they are going to be exactly there. These you do not set as playable, of course, because unless you want them to be playable. Because, yeah, if they are just AI that you want roaming around or prepared ambushes from the enemy, you just place them where you want the ambush to take place or whatever. Just leave them be. Once you start the map, the unit is going to be there, and I'm going to show you how to find them once we get into the Zeus module part. Alright, so that is it for placing objects, setting up your spawn, setting up your mission, because from there it's mostly going to be you guys playing with how you want to start setting up your missions. Just play with it, and you can do some pretty cool combinations with the bases that I just showed you. So, what I usually do as well is, just in case I forget, because I tend to forget, I like to place my some notes for myself on the map. Like, usually the way I do it is I'm gonna have a step-by-step of exactly what my mission is. And then on the side, I'm gonna have, like I was talking about at the beginning, I'm gonna have my like secondary options and other plans just in case something goes wrong. The way I do this is I go into the markers all the way at the end. Then you go into systems and you place down an empty marker. Empty markers are markers that only appear for the Zeus. They can be used for setting up scripting and stuff like that. But if you double click on them, once you've placed them on the map, you can edit the text that is going to be displayed next to the marker. So that's how I take my notes. I usually place a bunch of empty markers. I change the text to say, like, step 1, they are going to be doing this. I expect it to take 10 minutes, let's say. Then I detail exactly my plan so I can reference it if I need during my Zeusing session. And on the side of the map somewhere in a corner that I can see, I start typing ideas of backup objectives. What if the mission goes, like, what if the players go too fast, they blow through my mission, and there's like an hour left, and they're done with what I had planned. So I just plan some more objectives, just in case, or, like I mentioned, I place down my, what if my step A goes wrong, then I can refer to this one. Okay, so instead of doing that, they are going to be doing this. I think it's a good way when you're Zeusing to not get lost and not get overwhelmed if the players aren't doing what you expected them to. Any questions on the empty markers?
No, I see that you can also do other map type stuff. Make that grid markers and areas and icons and stuff.
Yes, I was just coming to this one. So yeah, like Ted just mentioned, you can also place hard set markers that are going to be on the map that nobody can erase. So if you want to, let's say, set up a front line, the easiest way I found, you can place a bunch of markers. Like if you go into the, where is it? I think it's a map location. Yeah, map location. You can place down a bunch of bunkers or whatever and say that is your front line. But the easiest way I found is in the same tab, markers. Instead of being into icons, you go into areas. And then you can pick like rectangle and then create, just click and drag the size that you want. Then maybe create a sort of line on the map. And then, like, if you want it to be like a front line, you can double click it. Like there should be like a target in the middle of the shape you just created. Just double click that. Should open up a menu for the rectangle you just created, and then you can either change the shape, or you can go brush, which is gonna change its appearance. Then you can change the color. Usually I go red or op4 if I want it to be a front line. And then basically you can create a bunch of those and then line them up to create a front line that the players are always going to see on the map. If you're not happy with how it looks, like the shape of it or whatever, or the orientation, on the top left, basically the bar that is at the top of the screen, top left, just under attributes, there should be there's the widgets, there's translation widget, yeah, rotation widget, scaling widget, and then the area widget. If you want to change the side of it, you go scaling widget, click on your shape, and then you can play with the X and Y axis. If you want to change the rotation of it, like you want it to be slanted or whatever, you press rotation, should bring up a circle once you click your object, and you just turn around the circle and your shape should change directions with it. And translation widget is just basically moving it left and right, top and down. And if you want to go back to your mouse, just click no widget and you're going to be back to your mouse. And then into the icons, that's where you're going to have your flags, where you can place a flag, say this area is controlled by those guys. There's the map locations, with our which are usually places of interest on the map, so like bunkers, bus stops, chapels, all that stuff that is marked there. Then you've got in NATO, Blue 4, civilians, independent, and all that stuff. It's basically unit markers. So it's the standard military way to mark a unit on the map. So let's say we take a mechanize. You can see it's the cross with like a circle in the middle or whatever. So that is mechanize because the cross is the infantry and the circle is, if you take it on its own, it's armor. So if you take both of them and combine them, that makes mechanize infantry. Motorize is the X with the vertical bar down the middle. Anyways, you can look through them and see what standard NATO stuff is if you want to place those. And then respawns, you don't need to touch those. Standard drawn is going to be markers on the map like ambushes, objective markers, but they're going to be like they are drawn on the map. If you want them to be a bit cleaner, like they were like made by a computer, you can go just into standard military. They're going to be like more, it's not going to be like somebody drew it on the map. It's going to be like it was printed that way. So that helps a lot, create some context for the players on what's going on the map, the situation of it. So the last thing about these widget up here on the right, is going to be the systems. The systems are powerful. Not going to go into too much detail about them because a lot of them require scripting to work. And I don't want to get into scripting because that would take about 4 days. So the systems, they are basically stuff that you place on the map that can hard set. They're basically like Zeus modules, but that are hard set on the map once you launch it. So basically you can create objective markers that are going to be on the map from the start. But why I'm not going into this is the objective marker is always going to be on the map, and the way to like change the state of it is going to be through scripting. And so it's going to be through scripting, and same goes for events. Like if you want to, most of these need a trigger to work. Like you need something to happen on the map that's going to activate the trigger that is going to activate that system. And that is a lot of scripting that, again, I don't really want to get into. One cool one that Nav showed me, actually, a few missions ago, was in environment. And then you go hide terrain objects. Place that down on the map. And then you double click it. you can select what object types. Basically what that system does is it's gonna hide everything that, like, not the ground, but every building or buildings, walls and fences, vegetations, other, basically what you tick when you double click it. It's gonna hide those like from the map. So you can basically take a town, hide all the buildings, and create a new town just using the roads. If you want to change the size of it, sorry, you want to go again onto the area scaling widget, just under the attributes. Then once you click it, there should be bars that appear, and from there you can change the size of it. You can hide everything basically that is inside the circle. And then from there you can go into your objects, props, then grab a building of some sort, whatever. If you want to change what a street corner looks like, that's the way to do it. So once you're done with your map, you're happy with your bases, you've got everything marked, you know that every player slot is there, you've got your spawn ready. What I suggest is always play test your mission before you send it out to RSAC, or I think it's Trav also you can send it to. I always send it to RSAC.
I suppose no.
But basically, yeah, you want to play test your map before you send it, just to make sure you set up everything correctly. So you can either click play scenario at the bottom. I prefer testing it in multiplayer just to make sure, because usually we use the map in multiplayer. So you can go at the top. On the top bar, just next to settings, there is play. Click that, and then go play into multiplayer at the end. This is going to set up a LAN server for you to test it out in. Just press OK. And then if you've set up your squads correctly, this is where you're going to see how well you did. You should see the curators, and then right under that there should be a Zeus and a Zeus slot. Then your alpha with everybody that's under it, Bravo, I had all the way up to Charlie, and then I had my overflow. Right now you will see that all the slots have AI into them. That is something we are going to change in just a minute. For right now, just at the bottom of the selection screen, just press disable AI. And then select the Zeus slot. And just get in, make sure you have your Zeus, that you've set up your module correctly. You can see your map, see that your modules are there. If you have some notes, you won't see them now, because to see your notes, basically you have to be in the Zeus menu and then open up your map. Then you're going to see your notes on the map. Alright, so from there, you know your Zeuses are well set, your slots are in the right place, so you can exit out, and you're basically ready for the final prep, and then you will be ready to send the mission. What to do is set the attributes of the map to the correct thing. So you go at the top, next to the widgets, attributes, and then multiplayer. This is where you are going to set, I usually set the game, I don't think it matters, but I always set it to Zeus. And then you can set the minimum amount of players. I always set it to 1, just in case it breaks with 0, because I don't trust Arma. And then whatever max amount of players you want, I go 64. Summary is going to be a line that is going to be next to the, basically it's going to be the mission description that is going to appear in the unit selection screen. Next to the mission name, there's going to be your summary line, so if you want to give some context or whatever. Enable AI. This you want to untick, because like you saw, once this is ticked, if a slot is not selected by a player, if this is ticked, an AI will take control of the unit instead. And since we don't want that, you untick that box. And if the slot is not selected, it's just not going to appear. And then the last thing you want to do is under respawn. Right now it should be at disabled by default. For us, we want respawn on custom position. And then in the rule sets list, you want to tick select respawn position and select respawn loadout. Then the bar right under it, basically, just to explain really quickly, select respawn position is what allows the Zeus to place a respawn marker on the map and the players to select it. Select respawn loadout is once you get into Zeus, you place your loadout module, select the loadouts the players have available to them, and that's what's going to allow the players to grab the loadout from the list. So that is why we select these two. Then respawn delay, you can play with the slider, or you can directly go into the timer that is next to it and change the numbers directly if you want it to be like an hour of respawn delay. You're a sadistic bastard, but hey, you do you.
And that's hours, minutes, seconds?
Yes, hours, minutes, seconds. If you hover over it with your mouse, it should say exactly what it is. Usually I go 15 seconds. If you want more, you can have more. It's up to you. Then show scoreboard, it's not necessary. I usually leave it on. When you die, if this is ticked, you are going to see, like, I think that's the menu that shows you what you killed, or the scoreboard basically. Once you die, it shows you. And allow manual respawn, so when you press escape, the respawn option is available. You want to leave that ticked. And yeah, that is basically it for the attributes. Press OK. And now this is the attributes that are set in the mission. From there, you are ready to send the map.
Save it first, yeah.
Well, you have to save it. Well, yeah, I was getting to that. So you save the map, you go into scenario, save as. You can save it in either missions or multiplayer missions. It does not really matter. Give it the name of the file. What I suggest is if you have spaces in the name of it, instead of doing a space, make an underscore. It's going to be much easier once you make the file into a PBO. So give it whatever name you want, and then press save. And then you go into export to multiplayer, again under scenario. Single player or multiplayer does not really matter. Just export it to one of the two. From there, the mission is saved. You have the PBO file and the mission SQM, which is really the only thing you need. But you have the mission ready. So from there, we can exit the editor. Any last questions about the editor overall? Anything you think I missed? Anything else you want to know?
So if you wanted to copy what you have onto a different map, how would you do that?
Basically, you would select everything you want to copy. Press Control C to copy it. Then you would go, let's say you want to place it into a map that you already have, or a new map. you go at the top, scenario. If you want a new map, you press new, and then select the new map that you want. Let's say you were in Chernarus, you want to go into Tanoa, for example. You go into new, Tanoa, new scenario. And then once the map's loaded, you can just paste it, Control V. If it's a map that you already have, basically same thing, copy the items that you wanted into scenario, open, then you're going to have the list of the maps that you saved. Just open the map that you want to copy the stuff into. And then same thing, just Control V, paste it. Basically carries over from map to map once you copied it from one. If you leave the editor, it's gonna delete your copy. But if you want a new map and you go into new, it's gonna carry over into the new map. So now the last thing that you want to do for your map to be ready is to turn it into a PBO. So you don't have to exit Arma, but you can. So you wanna tab out or whatever you want to do. I'm gonna send you a link because you, at the end of this, when I find it, you are gonna need PBO Manager to basically take your Mission SQM and paste it into a new file that you will turn into a PBO, because the Arma missions basically only read PBO files. So once you're tabbed out, to find your mission, there's two options. You can go into the game directory, wherever your game is installed. And then if you saved it, if you exported it into single player, once you're into your Steam Apps Common Arma 3, there's going to be one file that says missions, one that says multiplayer missions. If you saved it into single player, it's going to be under missions. If you saved it into multiplayer, it's going to be under the multiplayer missions. So you drag it onto your desktop. And the second way, if you don't want it as a PBO, is you can go into your documents, Arma 3 other profiles, your game profile, and then again, if you saved it in, this one is not if you exported it, it's going to be where you saved it. So if you saved it in single player, it's going to be in missions, multiplayer again, multiplayer missions. And there you should find the file, but not under PBO. I prefer this method because I don't have to unpack the PBO and then repack it. I just take that one, take the SQM out, and that's it. Because basically from there you need two other files that I'm again gonna make available at the end. You need a init.sqf and a description.ext. Basically, you want, if you grab the PBO, you want to open up PBO Manager, then open the PBO file and extract the mission SQM. Create a new folder with the mission name. Put the mission SQM inside of it alongside the init.sqf and the description.sqf. Place those in the same file as your mission.sqm. Once that's done, you want to repack your new file with all 3 extensions. You want to repack it into a PBO. Once it's repacked into a PBO, you can send that PBO file directly to RSAC or Trafco. And they are going to upload it to the server. And from there, your mission is going to be available.